There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy, lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up? Are you ready to make more money in 1 year than your father made in his whole life? Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
Well, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Fine. Then let's race.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingham and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Jacques Villeneuve, you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Bruno Senna, you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Hoy and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Landon Norris and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
You're listening to Race Day Live on Downforce UK, brought to you by Clapham North MOT, Motorsport Days Live, Stopwatch Hospitality and Trade Price Cars.
Hello everybody and welcome along to Mansell Raceway here at Dunkeswell down in Devon. It is a fantastic, gorgeous, sunny day and we are going to have an amazing time qualifying set of sessions. It's the Rotax classes of the Motorsport UK British Kart Championships and we're in for an absolutely stellar weekend's action. Jake Sanson here overlooking the first corner on this brilliant circuit, and I have to say, having walked the circuit a couple of times this morning, you couldn't really have found a better racetrack to bring the Rotax classes to. It's fast, it's sweeping, it's tight in places and technical. It's a cross between a normal common garden racetrack and a street circuit in the far section of the course. Very tight, very, very narrow, and incredibly no-holds-barred race action aplenty guaranteed. So we're going to see lots of stupendous action over the course of the weekend. The heat's taking place this afternoon. Unfortunately, we are just live for qualifying and for the finals tomorrow. We'll make sure we're in a good vantage point for all the race action tomorrow, but it's time qualifying and we're in for the first group of junior Rotax at the moment. First blood to Tom Adams. The E-plate for Coles Racing has gone to the top of the timesheets for the time being on a 46.76. Not bad at all in terms of the overall times. Will Ellswood currently running in second place from Chris Simpson of the XL Motorsport team. He lies in third position at this point, as the drivers are just trying to build themselves up to speed. Very, very warm at this point of the course, and obviously it is very, very hot and demanding for all of the drivers, even in the late stages of a time qualifying session. The long sweeping first corner should give us plenty of overtaking chances in tomorrow's races. On that short stretch up through the right flick and into the braking zone for a tight hairpin. 12 degrees air temperature according to what I've got in front of me. I'm not sure I believe it. I think it's a little bit more than that, and we're definitely going to get some very high temperatures over the course of the weekend. Tom Adams at the front end. Kai Hunter has now come up into second place in front of Will Ellswood and Chris Simpson. Then Will Egby in fifth position in front of Archie Brown. Dan Ginshard in seventh place from Will Walker, Brodie Trehorn and Ben Casely. The gap between the top 10, just 0.3 of a second. Ludicrously close in the junior Rotax class. And this is only the first group, don't forget. A warning flag in qualifying, though, has gone to the 53. Now, that is going to be Ben Casely for the KR Sport team. I'm not entirely sure what it is he's supposed to have done in time qualifying, but he certainly seems to have transgressed in some way. And the drivers are battling away for supremacy. It is currently Tom Adams at the top spot by 0.02 of a second to Kai Hunter. 0.04 off pole is Will Ellswood. 0.07 off pole in joint fourth are Chris Simpson and Will Walker. Simpson getting it due to his other lap times. And then 0.09 of a second away from pole position in sixth place is Brodie Trehorn. The top 10 covered by 0.3. The top 6 covered by less than a tenth. Qualifying is so crucial, and it's going to be incredibly close here at Mansell Raceway. And I have to say, the work that the guys have done here to bring the circuit up to Motorsport UK British Championship standard, the difference is the difference between night and day. It genuinely looks like a world-class racing facility, and it is absolutely fantastic that we've come here to race in the beautiful countryside, not far away from the seaside town of Sidmouth, right down on the south coast. And it is a wonderful, beautiful setting to go motor racing in the British Championship. So with the final few seconds of the Junior Rotax time qualifying 1 ticking down to 0, it's going to be the first man across the finish line that will basically end on a high, and I think that's going to be the likes of Adams, Hunter and Ellswood, who are running around the circuit together. Adams has increased his gap from 1/100 of a second to 2 as they come through on a 46.76. The first one to see the checkered flag across the line is the 19. That is Will Ellswood. No improvements in the top 3. Looks as though we may get 1 or 2 changes further back, but it's Tom Adams who grabs pole position from this time group in front of Kai Hunter and Will Ellswood. Chris Simpson in the XL Motorsport car has not been able to find that extra 700ths of a second to pump up the higher than 4th place. Although he is still pushing right to the death, he hasn't been able to get there. Although a personal best in the 3rd sector proves that you can still find a little bit of speed if necessary, but not on this occasion. So Will Walker not quite able to pull himself out of 5th place either. Brody Trehorn in 6th of the group from Will Egby, Archie Brown, Dan Ginchard and Ben Casey in the top 10. And then it is Jack Stedman in front of Tin and Rourke for the Team Clay Racing squad. Harry Holland, the privateer from Wales, along with Jensen Watts in 14th. Ethan Leader and Owen Allison from Mackenzie Cresswell and Reese Hurd. Then Hugh Lawrenson, Max Edmondson having some difficulties in qualifying, only managing to get 1 flying lap in. Likewise, Harry Gibson. And then Ben Hearsay, Joshua Poulane and Dylan West Jackson. And that is the 24 kart field from this particular group. The fastest first sector is that of the number 19 of Will Ellswood. He did a 34.27. The 45 is next up. That's Will Walker. He did the fastest second sector of 13.36 seconds. And apparently, according to the time screen in front of me, the 53 has the fastest third sector, which is 0.05. Something tells me that's not correct. And that's definitely a timing glitch there, so that's going to be corrected. But the fastest lap, of course, is Tom Adams's, a 46.76. The ideal best lap time, though, is a further 0.08 of a second quicker. So there is definitely a little bit more time to be found around the circuit, although, to be fair, not much. It's very much seaside essence weather at the moment here, as the gorgeous sunshine overlooking the Dunkeswell airfield just off to our left, as we've had all sorts of light aircraft taking off, and obviously drivers obviously looking at that and wondering, well, maybe there's some time to get in a little bit of light aircraft travel one day. And it's good to see that the atmosphere in this particular part of the world is very much about sun, sport and sensational action, and we're going to see a lot of that over the course of the weekend. The Junior Rotax second group is about to get itself ready to head out onto the circuit. Tom Adams is your fastest man from that time group, though. The Coles Racing driver getting fastest time in the group by just 0.02 of a second, with the top 6 drivers: Adams, Kai Hunter, Will Ellswood, Chris Simpson, Will Walker and Brody Trehorn, all covered by less than 0.1 of a second. You couldn't have written that script if you tried, and it is an absolutely stellar group of drivers. Now, the big question is, going into the second time group, is that second group of drivers going to find more time now that there's a bit more rubber laid down, or will they actually find themselves to be a little bit slower than the previous group? The wind is very high here, and that has caused a little bit of an issue in terms of setup for a couple of people, because the crosswinds do make a massive difference in terms of how you position yourself around the circuit. And you've got to make sure, essentially, that the karts are positioning themselves in the right places around the circuit, and that can provide its very own unique problems. But the drivers are obviously starting to get the hang of things now, as the driver who looks like he's going to lead them out onto the circuit, certainly the first one in the holding area closest to the racetrack, is 303 Squadron, Maciej Chimera, the Polish driver, who's just come off the back of a really impressive weekend last week at Clay Pigeon, so not far from here at all, in another championship. So obviously he's riding the crest of a wave, having done a very good job recently in Junior Rotax, and he is easily one of the favourites for this weekend as the drivers head out onto the circuit once again. And we're going to see some really exciting battles from the competitors once again. So as you can hear, the Rotax drivers are heading out onto the circuit, and we'll see some truly sensational battles for all of the competitors as they head back out onto the circuit once again. And so now the drivers head out on track, And it's going to be quite a tough one for Machi Himera, the pole, Daniel Armstrong, the privateer, Spencer Shinner, local driver, Miles Barthorpe, who had a problem in the practice session earlier, ended up pulling off the road in the first couple of laps, Jordan Morris for Team Clay Racing, Taylor Babs of Vision Motorsport, Will Jenkins for KR Sport, making massive leap forward, of course, the son of the British Truck Racing double champion Dave Jenkins, Joe Leake, Brandon Klein Nagelvort of Racing Perfection, James Crossley, Charlie Knight and Daniel Briggs, Ollie Tyler and Edward Matthews, CJ Morgan and Josh Powell, the two privateers, Ryan Taylor Truman, and for Persistence Motorsport, Kieran Kay, Matthew Higgins, the Welshman, for Vision Motorsport, is going to be out there on the circuit for this one as well. For DSM, it is Oscar Houle, Harry Newman Oakley of Vision Motorsport. The new man in at Coles Racing is the Azerbaijani driver Jamil Rogers, Jack Meakin, and then Harrison Collings for Vision and Dan Holland Racing, respectively. They head out onto the circuit as well. And it's all going to be about who can set the ultimate pace in these first few qualifying laps. So obviously the time to beat is very much understood now, as the competitors are out there putting in some very fast laps in the early stages. They want to make sure that they've got everything sussed out in the early doors. But it's never a given in the British Kart Championships. We've seen some amazing weekends already from all of the classes leading up to this weekend, but this third event of the championship for the Rotax Championships is definitely going to make things particularly spicy for all of the drivers as they try and gain just that little bit of an advantage over the course of the sector times. So after time qualifying 1, as we know, it is going to be interesting to see if anybody can get close to the time set by Tom Adams, who bags the fastest time from TQ. But we still have a long way to go in this session. It's they're only 6 minutes of length, these qualifying sessions. It seems to me that my timing screen seems to think that there is no time left, which is a very odd situation, because obviously these sessions are 6 minutes in length, and it seems to be that they were on 0 seconds at the moment. But that's not quite correct. Matthew Higgins, for the record, first flying lap out on the blocks, and has done a 46.89 to be at the front end of the field. Harry Newman Oakley on a 46.99, as too are Taylor Babs and Ryan Taylor Truman. So all of them very closely matched together at this point in proceedings. The green lights are on, and the timing, the digi-timer on the Mansell Raceway gantry in front of me shows 0 seconds. The timing screen shows 0 seconds. Not quite sure what's happening. Maybe a stray seagull has lent on the wrong dial or something, but certainly that is not the case, because they are still lapping around the circuit. It could well end up being, of course, that the drivers are wandering around. So let's see if it's going to continue in a very close quarters mark. Should do in the qualifying session. Ryan Taylor Truman now hits the front on a 46.85 from Matthew Higgins, who is a whisker off, 0.04 of a second to be precise. And then Harry Newman Oakley, Taylor Babs and Miles Barthorpe, Spencer Shinner and Kieran Kay from James Crossley, Will Jenkins, Joe Leake and Charlie Knight. Then Ollie Tyler, Machi Himera, Edward Matthews and Dan Armstrong, Dan Briggs and Jordan Morris, Jack Meakin, CJ Morgan, Oscar Houle, Brandon Klein Nagelvort, Josh Powell, Jamil Rogers and Harrison Collings, who appears to have not gone out onto the circuit just yet. Now, I don't know whether that means he's going to at all, or what that essentially means, but the drivers are out there, and I think they're actually doing the timing the old-fashioned way, because there seems to be a slight issue with the timing monitor. But the drivers are out on circuit regardless, and they're pounding around the lap times. Ryan Taylor Truman at the top spot, a 46.77 now. So very fast time indeed from Ryan Taylor Truman of the Coles Racing team. The Vision Trio are next up. That's Matthew Higgins, Harry Newman Oakley and Taylor Babs. So they're all in together as they duel away for position. But Junior Rotax is going to be very, very tightly battled. 75 is the fastest in the first and second sectors. That's Matthew Higgins. The fastest of all in the third sector is actually Miles Barthorpe, who's currently in 5th position and really starting to find some times. Will Jenkins now comes up to 3rd. I've really been impressed with Will Jenkins this season. He's turned a massive developmental corner, and now he's fighting at the sharp end of Junior Rotax. Great to see how much work he has put in to make that charge forward. Ryan Taylor Truman in pole position in this group at the moment from Matthew Higgins by 0.12. That's a big gap in this Junior Rotax field. Will Jenkins currently third from Harry Newman Oakley, Taylor Babs, Mars Barthorpe, Spencer Shinner going well on home soil, Kieran Kay, James Crossley and Joe Leake for TWM as they run in the top 10. Then Knight, Tyler, Matthews, Hamera, Armstrong, Meakin, Briggs, Morris, Oscar Houle, CJ Morgan, then Klein Nagelvort, Rogers, Powell and Harrison Collins, who has yet to set a time, and I'm not entirely sure he's going to have the chance to now. A massive weave from side to side over the start-finish line there from the 35, I think it was. That is going to be Brandon Klein Nagelvort for the Racing Perfection squad. He did seem to be jockeying the kart from side to side, really starting to shake things up a little bit up to the first corner. So the drivers are obviously trying to extract that little bit of extra speed out of the karts, but I wonder if after 6 laps around the circuit the tyres have started to fade already. I've spoken to a few drivers over the course of the season, and the checkered flag is held aloft at the start-finish line, so unless drivers are really starting to make a massive improvement, Jack Meakin being one of them on a 16.61, I'm not sure we're going to see any faster times in this session. And drivers did say to me that in time qualifying, drivers can really get maybe 3, potentially 4 laps out of these karts in terms of the tyres before they really start to fall away. And so far, it looks as though it's going to be Ryan Taylor Truman from this time group to get a 46.77. And that is obviously a very impressive performance from Ryan Taylor Truman. He'll be very happy to be at the top spot as the drivers come through to complete the session. And it's Taylor Truman on the top from Matthew Higgins and Will Jenkins, Harry Newman Oakley and Taylor Babs, then Miles Barthorpe and Spencer Shinner, Kieran Kay, James Crossley and Joe Leake in the top 10. Then it is Charlie Knight in front of Ollie Tyler, Edward Matthews and Machi Hamera, Dan Armstrong from Jack Meakin, Daniel Briggs and CJ Morgan, Jordan Morris, Oscar Houle, Brandon Klein Nagelvort, Jamil Rogers, Josh Powell and Harrison Collins, who set no time in qualifying. So a very interesting start to the day then for Junior Rotax. Very close indeed. In that one-time group alone, 20 drivers were covered by 0.8 of a second. So very close indeed up in Junior Rotax, and proof that on this quite short circuit but very fast and very twisty, quite technical in the midfield section, you've got to be absolutely on your A game. But as I said at the top of the bill, this is a very unusual kart circuit for British motorsport. The first part of the lap is incredibly clean and open. It's like a brand new facility. It's almost like a Sarno or a Napoli, or, well, Sarno is Napoli of course, but it's also almost an Adria style karting circuit. The first part of the lap, it's so squeaky clean and very modern and very fresh in its appearance. Then the second half of the lap, it starts to look a little bit more like Monaco or Macau, the kart circuits they have there, because it's all very tight and narrow, very twisty. The wall is very close to the edge of the runoff area. You don't have any runoff at various points on the circuit. It is very tight, and you know that if you get it wrong on an exit of 1 or 2 of the corners here, you're going in the barriers. It's as simple as that, and that provides a real technical challenge for the drivers, a really compromising situation in terms of setup as well, as some drivers are finding it easier than others to gain an advantage, whereas others are still really struggling in the curve. But what it means for us, of course, listening along on Downforce Radio around the world, is that we are obviously in for a very exciting fight over the course of the weekend. Time qualifying, of course, is live coverage here at Mansell Raceway. And then, of course, we rejoin the action again tomorrow for the first of the repêchages, which will take place at about noon tomorrow. And then we'll go all the way through each of the finals, which will take place 2 races per class. So for Minimax, Junior Rotax, Senior Rotax and Rotax 177, you're going to see some pretty incredible action over the course of the weekend. If you don't have any weekend plans, drop what you're doing, get in the car, load it up with some picnic hampers and some tents, and why not make your way down here? It's glorious sunshine. It's predicted to be a good 7 or 8 degrees hotter tomorrow than it is today, and it's already pretty bright, but the wind is definitely making the sun a little bit more prone to burning a few of the spectators, marshals and even teams and drivers around the circuit. So obviously that adds its own logistical problems. But certainly the activity is going to be very exciting indeed, and the great battles that we're going to see tomorrow are definitely going to be worth grabbing a decent vantage point. Senior Rotax is up next, and the time qualifying session is obviously going to be a very important one for a young Reese Hunter, who is battling for the Drivers' Championship in this 2019 season for the Dan Holland Racing Team. He lines up with his teammate Bradley Barrett. in this first of the two groups. Morgan Rose and James Lowther, the two teammates at Coles Racing, will go out. As you can hear, the drivers are heading out onto the circuit. Then Ben Burgess for Persistence Motorsport, Jack McConnell of the KR Sport team, Rob Ellis for Dan Holland Racing, then Tom Edmonds of KR Sport, Sam Baker, Sam Stansbury, Merrick Gigg and Teddy Clinton. Another of the Persistence Motorsport drivers, young Guy Cunnington, who of course was such an amazing battler in Junior Rotax last year, has really struggled at the start of this Senior Rotax campaign in 2019. Harvey Edmondson and Kieran Gifford, then Jaden Walker, Jemima Hepworth and Ryan Luscombe, as the drivers get out onto the circuit and put in another spectacular show. So we'll see what the drivers can do and how they will battle away over the course of the weekend. But some truly spectacular battles for all of the drivers as they will start to increase the tempo and move their way further forward. So a few drivers out there already starting to get a few strong lap times in. Out onto the circuit goes the 39, that is Merrick Gigg. And the only one who hasn't gone out on circuit now of this particular time group is Jaden Walker. So the drivers are now starting to bang in the first timed laps. Obviously they don't quite do a full complete lap on the first lap around the circuit, so that's an ideal time to start warming up tyres and brakes. The drivers in the second group are already heading out onto position. So obviously the competitors in this group will want to be very, very close. Tom Edmonds is purple in the first sector, 15.94. Fastest of all in the second sector is Tom Edmonds again on a 13.07. So expect him to go to the top of the timesheets. Guy Cunnington for the first lap goes top. James Lowther displaces him. Bradley Barrett slots into third. But what about Tom Edmonds? Surely he's going to creep up to the top spot. First in the first and second sectors. And he does indeed on the third sector, albeit a 10th down on Brad Barrett in the third split. He still goes fastest in the session thus far as Reese Hunter slots into second place with his first time lap. So the drivers are putting in a very good show, as obviously they want to be as high up the starting grid as they possibly can be. And Tom Edmonds is in a very good position from Reese Hunter and James Lowther, Guy Cunnington and Teddy Clinton, then Brad Barrett, Morgan Rose, Rob Ellis, Sam Stansbury, Sam Baker and Jemima Hepworth, who has the same time as Kieran Gifford. The top 12 covered by less than half a second. In fact, the top 13 covered by less than half a second. Now a 6 of times come in as Guy Cunnington slots into second place on a 45.68, 700ths away from Tom Edmonds. Reese Hunter's third, James Lowther in fourth place from Brad Barrett. Up to 6 now comes Teddy Clinton. He displaces Kieran Gifford as they set exactly the same time. And Brad Barrett has the same time as well. They're all on a 45.81 down to the 100th of a second. Tom Edmonds and Reese Hunter are now tied on the top spot, a 45.61 apiece, but Edmonds will claim pole position if it stays like this due to his second fastest lap being slightly quicker than Reese Hunter's. That's how they differentiate the positions in a tiebreaker down to the 100th of a second. Incredibly, 7 drivers covered by 0.2 of a second in time qualifying in this group at the moment. Edmonds is at the top, Hunter second from Cunnington, Lowther, Barrett, Clinton and Gifford, and they are all covered by 0.2. Then Morgan Rose, Jemima Hepworth going well in 9th place from Ben Burgess and Rob Ellis. Sam Stansbury, Sam Baker is up to 4th, goes Teddy Clinton, displacing Lowther and Barrett, as Merrick Gigg comes up to 12th place in front of Sam Stansbury and Sam Baker. Then Luscombe, McConnell, Edmondson and Jaden Walker, who has now gone out onto the circuit a little bit later than the others, but he's actually starting to pound in some lap time. So we'll see Jaden in the 46s, no doubt, as Tom Edmonds is on a 45.61 and has exactly the same time to the 100th of a second as Reese Hunter, but he's slightly in front based on his second fastest lap time. 2 minutes and 10 on the clock. So not a lot of time to play around with strategies here. They've just got to get in and find some decent track space. And Guy Cunnington is unable to improve upon third position. Fastest first sector of his session for Kieran Gifford on that last lap, so he might have something still in the tank. Jemima Hepworth is going faster than she's done before in the second split, and that's faster than Reese Hunter is currently going. So Jemima Hepworth may be about to move up out of 9th position and move further towards the top 6. Not much of an improvement, but a 45.92 is Jemima Hepworth's run. The reigning Downforce Radio Team Racer of the Year, of course, 2018, Jemima Hepworth. And good to see her running not far away from where she's based. Her 2 local circuits, of course, being Clay Pigeon and Mansell Raceway. She represented Great Britain as well in the FIA Women's Motorsport Girls on Track event at Le Mans in March. So great to see how she's getting on in her 2019 season, as drivers are still putting in a very good show. A massive run wide through the first corner for Ben Burgess of the Persistence Motorsport team. I wonder if he's pushed the tyres a little too hard as they go into the first corner. or if that's just pure driving error, has made a slight mistake. A few drivers practicing their overtakes, including Reese Hunter, who found a way on the inside of Jaden Walker to try and gain some time. But no change between Edmonds and Hunter. Still, they are dead level. 45.61 to the 100th of a second. They have the same time. Then it is Guy Cunnington, 700ths back in third from Clinton. And then it is James Lowther. And then two drivers tying for sixth place, Brad Barrett and Kieran Gifford. It's in favour of Barrett at the moment. And then Morgan Rose from Jemima Hepworth, Ben Burgess, Rob Ellis, Merritt Gigg and Ryan Luscombe in front of Sam Stansbury, Sam Baker, Jack McConnell, Harvey Edmondson and Jaden Walker. And looking at the times now, I'm not seeing much of an improvement for a couple of the drivers. I think they are pretty much coming to the peak of what their tyres can do. There are not a lot of changes in position now, as Edmonds and Hunter are not able to find an extra fast lap compared to what they have already set. So I think they're both going to have a 45.61 from this, which is very unusual, but they both have the same time to the 100th of a second. And that is now the benchmark for this senior Rotax field as the checkered flag is being prepared on the main straight, and they will pass under the brand new Mansell Raceway gantry overlooking the start-finish line, and the checkered flag comes out. Is there going to be a major improvement at the front end of the field? Well, Cunnington will remain in third at best. Lowther and Morgan Rose have both chosen to bail out of their final qualifying laps. Edmonds crosses the line, no improvement. What about Reese Hunter? He's set to cross the line soon as well. And Reese Hunter does now come across the line, no improvement, so they remain level on a 45.61, and that is very unusual to have the same lap time down to the 100th of a second. That is exactly what they have achieved. So Tom Edmonds from Reese Hunter, 700ths of a second, both of them quicker than Guy Cunnington in third. And then it's Teddy Clinton from James Lowther and Bradley Barrett, Kieran Gifford and Morgan Rose, all of them covered by less than a quarter of a second. Jemima Hepworth in a very good ninth place from Ben Burgess and Rob Ellis. Then Merritt Gigg and Ryan Luscombe, Sam Stansbury, Sam Baker, Jack McConnell, Harvey Edmondson and Jaden Walker. The entire group covered by less than a second. The top 10 covered by less than half a second. In fact, the top 15 of 18 covered by less than half a second. So ridiculously close in senior Rotax, and that is why there is such a massive draw to the Motorsport UK British Kart Championships, because with all these different chassis, all these different team setups, with Chaos Sport, Dan Holland Racing, Persistence Motorsport, Coles Racing, all of these teams up at the front end of Rotax, and even the privateers, they can all run very, very tight in together, very close mark racing, and incredibly even. And that's one of the things we love about karting in particular as a sport, but certainly in the British Kart Championships in Rotax, the classes are very evenly matched indeed, and we get to see some truly spectacular drivers really pushing the limits of what they are capable of around this circuit. Senior Rotax time qualifying 1 then sees a dead heat at the top of the timesheets, but we don't need to get too hop and down excitable yet, because we'll see whether anybody else can get close to the 45.61 mark in the second session. It's not a given. So we'll see how things continue to battle. It's going to be a very interesting challenge, and obviously some very hard charge racing is going to come tomorrow. Obviously through the heats this afternoon, the drivers are going to continue on their way. We'll bring you some social media traffic both on Downforce Radio and the British Kart Championships pages over the course of the day from the heats, and we'll try and get some words with a few of the drivers and basically give you a bit of a flavour as to what the circuit is like, what the classes are like as well. But Senior Rotax has definitely ended on a very exciting note, because we have a tiebreaker at the top end of the grid. Tom Edmonds and Reese Hunter, 45.61, only separated the two of them by who set the faster second lap time, and that was Tom Edmonds by a fraction in front of Reese Hunter. But really exciting to see how they have been battling and how they have adapted over the course of the first few sessions of the day. They had their first practice session at the top of the bill, and then of course 3 straight practice sessions, and obviously with this being one of the more strictly run clubs in terms of noise appreciation, the heats all have to be run today, and then obviously there's a warm-up session tomorrow before church bells, and then racing taking place from noon for the repêchages and finals, all of which will be broadcast live on Downforce Radio from trackside. So the second Senior Rotax group have now got to try and best that time of 45.61, which has two drivers looking at that exact lap time. James Johnson is the first of the drivers out in this group from Miles Apps. Harry Canham, Jake Douglas and Dan Jones, Luke Wooder, Anchi Stenning, Lewis Malin and James Lingard from Sam Sanders and Thomas Storar, Samuel Harrison and Lewis Halliday from Michael Roots, Jason Lockwood, George Holbrook, Oakley Pryor, Ben Davis, and making his Rotax debut this season, Lewis Gilbert in the 92. The Dolrye Diamond for Persistence Motorsport will be out there. So the competitors heading out onto the circuit, and obviously Tom Edmonds and Reese Hunter's time of 45.61 is the time to beat. So let's see how the competitors will be squabbling away for that top spot. But to even have a hope of being in the top 10, you've got to do less than a 45.96, and that's going to be very, very tight. There'll be a lot of drivers competing for that front end of the field here at Mansell Raceway, which has had an amazing overhaul, but there's an incredible history to this particular circuit as well. Great racing, and the 1992 Formula One World Champion Nigel Mansell is here this weekend. He's keeping an eye on things, and obviously the British Kart Championships under his very nose and on his beloved Mansell Raceway circuit. It's great to see that we've got some truly exceptional wheel-to-wheel battling, and the presentation of the circuit being top-notch. The Rotax classes putting on the spectacular show we always know they do, and it's just a simply wonderful weekend in the offing. Fastest in the first sector, Oakley Pryor for the record on a 16.14. So he is the first one to set a competitive Sector 1 time, and that's because obviously they go around for one lap of the circuit, having left onto the race circuit around the first corner. So the first complete lap is the first rolling lap. Oakley Pryor has done another fast time in the second sector, a 13.20. Maybe he's the man to really take the challenge to Tom Edmonds and Reese Hunter. That would not necessarily be a surprise, as he goes fastest of all for a brief moment, and then Luke Wooder pops up with a 45.95. His first flying lap is good enough to be 10th overall. So Luke Wooder, definitely a statement of intent in his first flying lap then. The only one who doesn't seem to have gone out onto the circuit at the moment is James Johnson of the Dan Holland Racing team. Now I wonder if he's got a problem, or has he stopped out on the circuit? I'm not entirely sure, but certainly some difficulties. I can't see anything around the circuit that would suggest James Johnson's got a problem, but you know, we've been wrong before. So Luke Wooder, he's already very much in the zone to get the top 10 overall, as he has forced his way into it with his first flying lap. And Oakley Pryor goes fastest on a 45.93 to displace him. Wooder second, Halliday up to third from Ben Davis, and then it is Jake Douglas in front of Lewis Gilbert in sixth place, who has now set the fastest first sector of all. So Lewis Gilbert is trying to move up from a 46.14. Can he break into the 45s? The answer is going to be given to us very soon indeed, as Miles Apps shoots up to fourth place in front of Ben Davis and Jake Douglas. Lewis Gilbert goes fastest, a 45.69, up into fourth position immediately for the Scotsman. So Lewis Gilbert is now already in behind Edmonds, Hunter and Cunnington, as Gilbert goes fourth place. Overall, that is. He's fastest in the time group. 3 minutes to go. Oakley Pryor second from Luke Wooder, Lewis Halliday, Miles Apps and Ben Davis, then Jake Douglas, Jason Lockwood, Sam Harrison and Thomas Storar, and then Sanders and Holbrook. Up to second now comes Lewis Halliday. He manages to find 0.04 of a second more than Oakley Pryor, his teammate, as the Team Clay Racing squad boys are in second and third place now in front of Luke Wooder, in fourth position from Miles Apps and Ben Davis. Halliday has now got himself into the overall top 10 with that lap as well, a 45.89, 0.2 of a second behind Lewis Gilbert, but still putting in an absolutely rip-roaring performance nonetheless. So Miles Apps in fifth position, Ben Davis sixth from Jake Douglas and Jason Lockwood. We're going to see some really exciting battles through the field if these positions remain intact. There's a yellow flag because we had somebody off the circuit in the first corner. Looked like one of the Dan Holland Racing carts that had a very slow run through the first sector. Couldn't tell you who that was from a distance, having a bit of a lacklustre performance. It was George Holbrook. So George Holbrook having a bit of an issue there at the start of another flying lap. But Lewis Gilbert has the top spot. He's gone faster than his personal best in the second sector, so maybe Gilbert can find that missing 0.09 of a second that keep him from the ultimate pole. He's not done it on that occasion, a 45.99. But this might give the lie to the fact that maybe there's 2 or 3 good qualifying laps from these tyres. It seems to suggest that maybe there's only 2 in these sessions, because the third flying lap for a lot of drivers, they've actually ended up going quite significantly slower by nearly a quarter of a second or so than their previous best lap times in many cases. There are a few drivers still trying to find a little bit more pace, but again, on the next flying lap, a lot of drivers are not able to find more speed. So I would suggest then that really, for the drivers, on the whole, it's the second or third flying lap that is really the ultimate lap that's going to get you a decent run in qualifying, as George Holbrook has brought the car into the pits to give up on qualifying on this particular time run. Lewis Gilbert is on top with a 45.69, 0.2 of a second clear of Lewis Halliday in the group. They are the only 2 drivers from this time group to have made their way into the overall top 10 from time qualifying. But Lewis Gilbert is currently looking at a 45.69 as his best time. Fastest first sector is the 92 of Lewis Gilbert. He's done a 15.90. Fastest of all in the second sector is the 66 of Oakley Pryor. He's done a 13.09. And fastest of all in the third sector is Luke Wooder. He's done a 16.52. And that means that the ultimate lap time is actually a 45.51, with Gilbert having done a 45.69. So if he could string the perfect lap together, then he will overtake Edmondson, Hunter and Cunnington in front of him up the road. Halliday has already brought the car into the pits, we're told. I don't think he can make an improvement then. Checkered flag will fly at this point as the time has run down to 0, and I think Lewis Gilbert can only really expect a 4th place finish overall from time qualifying, because I don't see him making up that additional 0.09 of a second he needs even in this final flying lap. He's going to need something pretty special. Jake Douglas, fastest of all in the first sector, not particularly quick in the second though. Sorry, faster than he has gone before, I should have said, in the first sector. So Douglas could be a threat to move up into the top 6, but Lewis Gilbert does not look like he's going to improve on this lap. He's done a 16.09, backed up by a 13.25, so I don't really see Lewis Gilbert improving on this lap. In fact, he has brought it straight into the pits. He's decided not to. So 4th position overall will have to do. Fastest from the group. And Lewis Halliday is second, ahead of Oakley Pryor and Luke Wooder, then Miles Apps and Ben Davis. The gap between them all is less than 0.4 of a second. Then Jake Douglas from Jason Lockwood, Sam Harrison and Lewis Malin, Angie Stenning and Thomas Storar from Sam Sanders, James Lingard, George Holbrook, Michael Roots, Harry Canham and Dan Jones, with no time set by James Johnson, the number 6. So I can only assume that he is either not here or has got some form of mechanical difficulty. So a very difficult start to the weekend for several drivers. 0.9 of a second covers fastest in this group Lewis Gilbert, all the way down to Harry Canham in 17th, 0.94 behind. But again, this proves really the factor that it is a lot harder than people may have immediately given credit for to keep these tyres running up at the top temperature. Maybe only 2 really fast laps are possible on these tyres on this circuit in such conditions. The wind is very high. According to the timing screen in front of me, the air temperature is 12 degrees Celsius. Somehow I'm a little bit dubious as to whether that's correct or not, because it certainly feels like we're in the early 20s at the moment. Well, we have 2 more time qualifying sessions to come in our coverage of this afternoon's Motorsport UK British Kart Championships from the great Mansell Raceway circuit in Dunkeswell, just down the road from Sidmouth in Devon. And it's going to be a really entertaining day of race action tomorrow, if these time qualifying sessions are anything to go by. But Lewis Gilbert and Lewis Halliday are the only drivers from time qualifying 2 for senior Rotax to break their way into the top 10. So Tom Edmonds hangs on to fastest time in front of Reece Hunter, although they set exactly the same lap time to the 100th, 45.61. But Edmonds will get the pole position by virtue of a faster second fastest lap. Cunnington is third from Gilbert, then Clinton, Lowther, Barrett, Gifford, Rose and Lewis Halliday rounding out the top 10 overall. The gap between them is 0.28. So a little over a quarter of a second covers the entirety of the top 10 in senior Rotax across both qualifying groups. So very exciting stuff. And now we can wipe the slate clean again and get ourselves ready for the action in Rotax 177. And after that, it will be the youngest drivers in the paddock, and that is the Minimax class. So plenty of great action to come here at Mansell Raceway. Here at Dunkeswell in the gorgeous Devon sunshine. There is starting to be a little bit of light cloud coming over, and that's actually going to make things fairly humid over the course of the afternoon, which is definitely going to cause some interesting situations in the heats, because that humidity will lock in the heat over the circuit, and it will make things very exciting indeed, as we've got parachute jumpers and planes coming into land to the left-hand side, very close to each other here at Dunkeswell. The airfield next door is obviously having as many thrills and spills as we are on the ground, and plenty of horsepower in both disciplines of exciting endeavour, of course. But we're going to see some truly exciting qualifying session action from the 6 minutes of Rotax 177 time qualifying. The drivers are about to head out on the circuit. They get the green light, and away they go. They are the E-plate, Michael Cheek for Dan Holland Racing, James Moorcroft, the O-plate for Team Clay Racing, and then the reigning British champion for Persistence Motorsport, Louis Large, who won as a rookie last season, is finding his 2019 defence of the crown very tricky indeed. Then it is Chris Thomas for the GMS karting squad, Alexander Luck, the privateer, Ian Branfield for Haworth Racing, Chris Wright in number 8, then Charlie Whaley, the privateer from Cole Edwards and the Haworth Racing squad, Dan Milner, Tim Darlow, Matteo Zanetti, who is taking part in 2 consecutive race weekends, because last weekend he was in the British Kart Championships in the KZ2 category at Fullbeck, and now he is here in Rotax 177 at Mansell Raceway. And he's in the TWM colours this time. Jamie Desira, now in the Dan Holland Racing team. Joe Fifner, the privateer from Carl Churchill, also a Dan Holland Racing. Taylor Adams, Adam Sadler, Colin Davis and James Beecroft, 4 brilliant privateers. Then the Haworth Racing twins of Aaron Yao and Sam Winter. Then Luke Oliver of Coles Racing and Nathan Chafer, the privateer. So with 4 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock, it's obviously going to be very important for the 177 Brigade to find as much time and pace out of the kart as possible. And as they complete the first timed sector on the first major flying lap of the weekend, we've already seen from the previous time qualifying groups that you can get 2, possibly a third really fast laps out of these tyres before they start to drift away. Fastest of all in the first sector is the 11, that's Cole Edwards, as Alexander Luck completes the first flying lap. But he's already going to find a lot of big pressure on him to hold on to the place. Colin Davis and Luke Oliver haven't managed it. Sadler, Milner and Darlow complete the top 6 for the moment, but they will go a lot faster than they currently have. As up to second now goes Jamie Desira. And up to 4th comes Cole Edwards. The number 10 is Charlie Whaley. He's on the RS chassis, the Ralph Schumacher kart, which has its DNA, of course, within the Praga chassis. Alexander Luck is now the fastest man out there, a 46.99 from Jamie Desira and Colin Davis from Cole Edwards, Ian Bradford. Now up to the top on their flying laps. Nathan Chafer has gone fastest. Chris Thomas displacing them on a 46.83. So Chris Thomas is the fastest man. Nathan Chafer second from James Beecroft and Michael Cheek. Then Alex Luck, Jamie Desira, James Moorcroft, Colin Davis, Cole Edwards, and rounding out the top 10 provisionally is Ian Branfield, who is just a whisker in front of Louis Large. Fastest of all in the first sector now is Chris Wright. And the number 8 has gone fastest of all, and that's a 16.35. So this lap could be the one where we see some major changes. Jamie Desira is in front of Louis Large and Charlie Whaley now as they duel for 6th, 7th and 8th. But the leaders are coming through. Fastest of all in the second sector is Nathan Chafer as he tries to get the top spot back again from Chris Thomas. So it's going to be an interesting one as the drivers come across the line and they come out of that final chicane, back on the power and down the straight. And Chris Wright is up to 4th position. Chris Thomas improves to a 46.83. But there's not a lot of distance now between himself and Nathan Chafer. 300ths of a second. James Beecroft is 200ths back from that. Alexander Luck equals his time to the 100th. They are both 3rd and 4th now. Chris Wright is 200ths off that. Michael Cheek is 200ths off that. And Jamie Desira is 0.17 away from pole position. So less than a 10th covers the top 6 yet again. Louis Large trying to get himself further up the order, and he's up to 8th place now. Matteo Zanetti goes well. He's up to 9th on a 47.02. That is the same time again to the 100th as Louis Large. So it's very close at the sharp end. A quarter of a second currently covering the top 13 drivers in Rotax 177. And there is no second group. All of the drivers in the category are out on the circuit for time qualifying together. So they've got to make sure it counts right from the starting point. So with 2 minutes and 2, plus Thomas's determination up at the front end of the field to get himself 300ths on Nathan Chafer in front. So it's Alexander Luck up to 3rd place. His previous lap must have been a much better one, as Chris Thomas finds a 16.34 in the first sector. That is the fastest sector of all. And if he can keep this sort of bandwagon rolling in the second sector, well, he's done a 13.56. That's not the fastest of the second sectors, of course. He's about 0.14 back, but that is achievable in the third sector as they come through out of the final turn. Nathan Schaefer's going to get a 47.09 out of it. What about Thomas? Well, he does not improve. He remains on a 47.01. So that's probably why it ended up costing him. A minute 12 on the clock. Chris Thomas in pole position at the moment for Rotax 177 from Nathan Schaefer and Alex Luck. Then James Beecroft, Chris Wright, Michael Cheek, Jamie Desira, Matteo Zanetti, Louis Large and Charlie Whaley in the top 10. 0.22 is the gap between those 10. In 11th place it is Cole Edwards from Ian Brandfield. They have the same time to the 100th. Then exactly a quarter of a second back is James Moorcroft. He's in 13th place. And then it's Colin Davis from Luke Oliver, Joe Piffner, Sam Winter, Carl Churchill, Adam Sadler, Aaron Yao, Dan Milner and Tim Darlow with just 2 laps, a flying lap I guess it must be, set by Taylor Adams, who is down at the back of the field, having only done 1 qualifying lap. He may feel that, you know, if his team have got a little bit of a penalty coming their way in a later endeavour, of course, we're talking about here, then that could end up being a little bit interesting. But Chris Thomas has brought his kart into the pit, and he's done, as is the O-plate, James Moorcroft. A couple of others choosing to bring the kart into the pits to finish their qualifying session, but the Chris Thomas, fastest in the qualifying session, has decided he's done enough. Colin Davis has come through and brought it into the pits as well. Joe Piffner has done likewise. Taylor Adams has only done 1 flying lap and is still 1.1 away. Nathan Schaefer gets a 46.86, 0.03 away from the top spot. So obviously close, but not close enough if you're Nathan Schaefer. Alex Luck is going to remain in third position on a 46.88, the exact same time to the 100th as the man in fourth, James Beecroft, although it goes the way of Alex Luck based on his next fastest lap, which must have been slightly fractionally quicker than James Beecroft, who remains in fourth position. But an amazing run and a great stretch for the competitors as they try to put themselves further up the order. And it's Chris Thomas who bags the fastest time from Rotax 177. Nathan Schaefer is second. Alex Luck in third place from James Beecroft and Chris Wright from Michael Cheek and Jamie Desira. Then Matteo Zanetti, Louis Large and Charlie Whaley from Cole Edwards and Ian Brandfield. James Moorcroft is 13th from Colin Davis. Then Luke Oliver and Joe Piffner. Then Sam Winter, Aaron Yao, Adam Sadler, Carl Churchill, Dan Milner, Tim Darlow. And just the 1 flying lap, it seems, for Taylor Adams, who got a 47.93 out of it and almost certainly would have been one of the drivers trying to challenge his way for the top 10 had he not had whatever incident it is that has occurred that has prevented him from completing more than 1 flying lap. So that is Rotax Junior, Senior and 177 completed for time qualifying. There is just 1 session left of our coverage on Downforce Radio as we battle around the Mansell Raceway circuit here at Dunkeswell, just down the road from the beautiful seaside town of Sidmouth in Devon. A lovely part of the world this, and a glorious setting to go racing. And I have to say full credit to all of the staff of the Mansell Kart Race Club and to Nigel himself, the 1992 Formula 1 World Champion, who is here and is keeping an eye on things. And no doubt when he starts to walk around in the lunch break, there's going to be countless motor racing enthusiasts, young and old, who will want various different things signed by the 1992 Formula 1 World Champion, who is enjoying the weekend and has been here since before 8 o'clock. He really does have that passion for motorsport still thrusting and throbbing through his veins. He can't get it out of his system. And of course, he's famous for Formula 1, but a lot of people don't realise just how successful a career Nigel Mansell actually had in karting at both club and national level in the mid-70s, when the sport was very much still in its infancy. And Nigel is actually quite unique in being one of the first drivers in Formula 1 to have got there through the world of karting. He really was one of the drivers to start that trend, which was then, of course, preceded by the likes of Riccardo Patrese, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, and a few others from that sort of era. And of course now it is the norm to go from karting to Formula 1. All 20 of the current drivers on the grid have gone through karting in either domestic, club or international level, or in some cases all 3. And it very much is very appropriate then that we're here at the Mansell Raceway circuit, where one of the first major British sporting household names in karting has come to the fore, and of course had an amazing prolific career in Formula One that spans the 1980 season all the way through to the end of 1994, before his 2 races attempted with McLaren in 1995. He's done the British Touring Kart Championship. He won the Kart Champ Car Series in 1993, of course, for the Newman Haas racing team, and has had an amazing career that has spanned all sorts of different multiple disciplines of the sport, and he's one of the best ambassadors for British karting. Great to see that we are here in the gorgeous Devon sunshine, and I have to say the Mansell Raceway circuit really does look absolutely spectacular. I did 2 laps of the circuit this morning on foot, and I really wish I'd have brought my bike, because this is an absolutely wonderful setting and a great facility. Minimax time qualifying begins. The 6 minutes commence, and the drivers will head out onto the circuit with the Rotax engines, I should say, about to head them out onto the circuit for Minimax. And it's going to be Archie Kitching and Sam Gornall, the Coles Racing teammates, who again will be battling away. TWM's Alexander Hughes, along with Harley Horton, another of the Coles Racing talents. Cameron Ross for XL Motorsport. Luke Evans for the TWM squad. Ollie Stevens, fresh off the back of a great week last week, I should say, in his karting campaign at his other local circuit, Clay Pigeon, last week. Ollie Stevens for the Team Clay Racing squad. Then Nicole Sutherland for Vision Motorsport. Jacob Baldry on the Lenzo car. Great to see them putting their weight in the British fray. Callum Voisin for Coles Racing. Ryan Willis of the Project One Racing team. Declan Russell, the privateer, in front of Jez Williams of Vision Motorsport. Jed Murphy for the XL Motorsport team. Coles Racing's Juan Mwaniki. Tristan Rennie, the Scottish star for Project One Racing. Harry Reynolds and Logan Parker of the Coles Racing team. And then the 99, Lincoln Bailey Arneson of XL Motorsport. So for the record, the fastest first sector has popped up, and that is the 27 of Ollie Stevens, who makes his way around on this flying lap and is trying to get some really fast times in. A 14.13 for the fastest second sector. Is anyone going to beat that? Well, straight away Callum Voisin has gone slightly quicker than Ollie Stevens, so we'll find out who the ultimate first driver out on the circuit is going to be. But for the record, Ollie Stevens is going to be the first one to complete a timed lap, and therefore goes to the top of the timesheets on a 49.64. The ideal lap is already a 49.27, and I think we're going to get into the 48s before this qualifying session ends. So the drivers are going to come out of that final chicane and onto the main straight. The first flying lap will be very telling as to who has got ultimate pace straight away. Callum Voisin has done a 49.30. Has anyone gone faster? Yes, Jez Williams pops up on a 49.22, 0.08 of a second back. So it's Jez Williams from Callum Voisin, Tristan Rennie in third now. Archie Kitching is fourth from Logan Parker and Juan Mwaniki. Then Hardy Horton and Ollie Stevens, Alexander Hughes and Sam Gornall in the top 10. And they're covered by 0.52 after their first flying lap. But expect the second or third laps really to be the ultimately quick ones. And we'll see what the drivers can do as they get their way around the circuit then. Jez Williams was fastest. Now Ollie Stevens takes it back, a 49.19. Remember what I was saying about the pole position lap. He's likely to be in the 48s. So let's see what's going to happen. Fastest of all in the first sector is Tristan Rennie, a 17.03. Fastest of all in the second sector is still Ollie Stevens, a 14.01. So local knowledge definitely counting. They come across the line, and who's going to go top dog? Jez Williams pops up with a 48.87. Rennie is a 100th of a second quicker. Tristan Rennie gets to the top spot. The Scot has been absolutely brilliant there. A 48.86 from Tristan Rennie. He goes fastest then from Jez Williams. Alexander Hughes is third. Then Logan Parker, Harley Horton, Juan Mwaniki, Ollie Stevens, Sam Gornall, Harry Reynolds and Callum Voisin. Very interesting to see the title protagonists, Sam Gornall and Archie Kitching, down and a long way out of the top five. Up to third now comes Ollie Stevens. Again, local knowledge counting in his favour for the Team Clay Racing driver. Ollie Stevens knows this place very well. But Tristan Rennie and Jez Williams are separated by just 100th of a second. Fastest of all in the first sector, though, Jez Williams. And he's gone faster than he's done in the second sector. Fastest of all in sector 2, interestingly, is now Callum Voisin. So he's about to charge forward. Williams goes fastest. Voisin goes faster. 48.62 from Callum Voisin. So Callum Voisin up to the top spot on a 48.62, 0.09 of a second quicker than Jez Williams, and the rest of the field is nearly a quarter of a second back. Absolutely amazing. Ollie Stevens is not done yet. He's gone faster than he's gone before in the first and second splits. Can he get back past Tristan Rennie, who's on a 48.86? Logan Parker on a 48.92. So Stevens a 48.96, and he goes third, a 48.85. So good run from Ollie Stevens into the first corner. He continues again. Fastest of all in the second sector, Callum Voisin. He wants even more time from this circuit. He's already found a 48.62. And with a minute and a half left to go in time qualifying, everybody is on very nearly a personal best in every single sector. So they're still finding time. Williams goes fastest, Voisin goes faster still, and Rennie pops back into third place. So Voisin gets a 48.52. Williams gets a 48.58, and they are still only 600ths of a second apart from each other. Sam Gornall now comes back into the fray. At last, he's into third position. Whisker in front of Tristan Rennie. Ollie Stevens still fifth. But Ollie Stevens is now finally starting to find that the tyres are not gripping the same way that they were. Fastest of all in the first sector now is Juan Waniki. He's gone a 16.94. If he can sustain that for the rest of the lap, as Callum Voisin again goes the fastest of all in the second sector, a 13.84. Waniki's done a 13.92 in the second split, so Waniki could get into the top 5 here. He's running very well on this flying lap. Across the line comes Williams. Can he go fastest of all? Nearly 200ths of a second. Voisin then goes better. Alex Hughes up to 5th. Evans is up to 5th. Sam Gornall goes second with the same time as Callum Voisin. To the 100th of a second. Voisin and Gornall, the same time. But Voisin will still hold pole because his faster time for the second fastest lap is going to be fractionally quicker than Gornall's. They now go into the final qualifying lap because we're in the last 20 seconds. And Tristan Rennie now has the fastest first sector time of anybody, a 16.93. So he could find that little bit of time. Voisin gets a 16.95 for the first split. That's faster than anybody's managed. Rennie looks like he's made a slight mistake in the second split. He's not quite going to get the time. It's 0 seconds on the clock. Fastest of all in the first sector now is Jed Murphy. Where did that come from? So there's going to be some changes. Voisin is going to remain on top. Alex Hughes comes up to 5th place. Can anybody displace Voisin in the top 8? The answer is no. Up to 9th comes Harry Reynolds. Archie Kitching just scrapes into the top 10. That's a frustrating qualifying session, but what about Jed Murphy? Can he break into the top 10 now? No, he's made an error on his final sector. So, a very dramatic session then in Minimax, but it's Callum Voisin who is the fastest man, although Sam Gornall has equalled his time to the 100th of a second. They both have a 48.46. Voisin gets the pole, though, based on his second fastest lap being fractionally quicker than Gornall's. Williams is third from Juan Waniki. Great performance there in 4th position. Alex Hughes is 5th from Logan Parker and Ollie Stevens. Tristan Rennie is 8th from Luke Evans. And Harry Reynolds rounds out the top 10. Just a fraction in front of Archie Kitching. The top 10 covered by 0.3 of a second. Then it's Harley Horton in 12th behind Kitching. Nicole Sutherland doing well in 13th. And then Declan Russell, Jed Murphy, Ryan Willis, Lincoln Bailey-Arneson. And the whole of those drivers are covered by 17 seconds. Then Cameron Ross and Jacob Baldry, who struggled a little bit to find the time, the pair of them. But what a battle it's been in time qualifying. We now allow the racers to go into the heats and try and book themselves a decent position on the starting grid for the finals tomorrow. But what a great start it's been here at Mansell Raceway in the 3rd weekend of the season for the Rotax classes in Minimax, Junior and Senior Rotax, and of course Rotax 177. Racing for the finals kicks off tomorrow at 12 o'clock. That is when Downforce Radio will go live again. I'm Jake Sanson. Hope you've enjoyed the coverage from time qualifying. We'll be back in action once again tomorrow at noon when the battle for the Rotax British Championships in Mini, Junior, Senior and 177 Rotax classes continues.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingham and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Jacques Villeneuve. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Bruno Senna. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Hoy, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Landon Norris, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.